I'm hopeful, regardless of the outcome. Boost the positive energy without one. Sorry about the jab, I'm on a holy field. I'm bearing fruit, but demons try to eat them like Yoshi meals. I piss them off the Batman like Falcone deals. Jungle full of predators, I know how Mowgli feels. So I got the fire, refuse to live in fear. I can spot suppliers, eating fresh drugs. Call me private.
Oh yeah, this is a bonus episode of the Permaculture Pimpcast, where Pimp, I'm just going to say this right off the bat, it stands for Permaculture is my passion. The only Pimpcast on planet Earth where we discuss permaculture, preparedness, and practical living, sometimes even the paranormal, and there's been all of the above as of late. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is going to be a little strange is that normally you hear my voice behind the microphone. Well, it's going to be different today because we have a special episode where all the ladies that are involved, and they're going to tell you all about it here. Look, they're Michael. I'm Tito tonight. I'll be working the chat. I'm just here to kick this thing off and give them a little bit of break because it's going to take a little time for them to get their sea legs. A couple of them right now are about as nervous as R. Kelly standing outside of a daycare. So give them a break. They're going to get it all worked out. Everything's going to be hopping and popping. In lieu of all the advertisers that we normally have tonight, they'll have to forgive me because once again, this is a bonus episode and I am going to introduce everybody. And then I'm as hungry as a runaway slave. I'm gonna go downstairs and I'm gonna eat this steak that's sitting down there getting cold as we speak. So with that said, we're going to bring everybody up. We got Lacie from the Fit Farmer. And of course, you know, Mike as well. Everybody unmute yourselves, please. And Sophie. Yeah, Sophie on her end, and she's from Sprinkle with Soil, also is a recent author and has a balling cookbook that we got downstairs. Oh, and of course, the Homestead Honey, of course, the better half of Perma Pastures Farm right now. And folks, before we get kicking, remember, hit that thumbs up. Tell everybody that they're live right now because it's it helps the algorithm. So that said, I am going to kick it off to, well, we're getting a lot of feedback on your end, Lacie, so I'm going to ask you to mute yourself. Right now, we're just going to, Sophie, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and Lacie and Michelle and everybody else is going to take it from here. I'll be in the background.
Thanks so much, Billy. Happy to be here. Yeah, so you might have heard of me from the Nourishing Asian Kitchen cookbook that came out last December. And we are homesteading here in East Tennessee on 5 acres. We raise pretty much all of our protein from our dairy cattle to beef cattle, goat, 1 goat left, flock of sheep, and poultry, chickens, ducks, and turkeys. And then we've got about a 1/4 acre garden. So we are trying to be as self-sufficient as possible. We moved here by way of California after growing up in the Bay Area and really only knowing how to live a very convenient city life. I grew up very traditionally, though. However, growing up with my parents who are immigrants from Vietnam, I had to eat nose to tail back then. It wasn't cool. And so in writing this cookbook, it was just supposed to be a fun family project, just to be a redemptive way to share all of mom's recipes for the children. It's been doing really well. And so you know, the conversations around how to be self-sufficient, how do we stretch our budget, how do we, you know, if we're going to be harvesting a chicken or buying a chicken from a small farmer, how do I make sure I use all of it? How do I improve the nutrient density of my food? So I can nerd out about that. And I know we're all going to be talking about how to be that thrifty, smart homesteader today. So more to come. But yeah, that's a quick little intro.
Thank you for that, Sophie. Lacie, how about you introduce yourself?
Tell us Hi. Well, I'm Lacie. We our big thing is we live in a yurt. We have for 10 years now, actually. So we've been on our homestead for 10 years. We lived in the city before, and we did not like being, you know, really everybody on top of everybody. You went outside and your neighbor's dog is barking at you, or, you know, somebody's speeding down the road and you don't want your kids to run out in the road. So we bought a yurt off Craigslist, actually, and set it up on some family property. And we've been here for 10 years, and we started out market gardening. And now we have our dairy cow and goats, and we raise chickens and ducks. Actually, they butchered chickens and ducks today. So we're living the life right out here in North Carolina.
How exciting. All right. We are here to talk about what the women are going to be talking about at Homesteaders United, which is our conference coming up in, I believe we're 71 days out. And just to give a little update, all of our early bird tickets have sold out, and about half of our camping spots have sold out. So if you would like to camp, make sure you get your tickets and get your camping spots reserved. All right. So a little bit, I'm just going to talk about the venue a little bit. It's this spot, it's a blueberry orchard, and it is in the mountains in Asheville. If you've never been to Asheville, North Carolina, it is a beautiful spot in the mountains. Like I said, you'll be camping in the blueberry orchard. This is where Billy and I go to pick blueberries every single year, which is how we met the owner. And it's a beautiful spot, and I know you're going to love it. So I'm going to throw it back to Sophie we're just going to introduce you to the topics that we're going to be talking about for our talk.
Right. So we're going to be talking about how to be a smart homesteader. And when I mean smart, I mean thrifty smart, especially with today, we're all feeling the pinch of the rising food costs, inflation. I mean, these are the things that we talked about in 2020 with our friends in the Bay Area, California, and people thought we were nuts. They were telling us to slow down, calm down, don't worry, everything's going to come back to normal. And I just knew from my gut that things weren't going to be normal. And I don't think I want to go back to that normal after seeing all of our stores in the Bay Area shut down. So what we thought was going to be a really great topic tonight is to talk about how we can be a smart homesteader, from talking about all of the different ways that us ladies have shared about our resourcefulness, and we've gotten together so many times and we shared so many things that we're like, hey, have you thought about doing these? This is what I do. And so we thought, let's talk about that. Let's talk about growing and preserving our own food, from the kitchen to the garden. Let's talk about livestock and how do we use our livestock efficiently, even considering water and energy conservation and how important the community is. So we can kick off with a couple of things.
That sounds great.
Yeah. So let's talk about planning and resourcefulness. This is something that when Tim and I, as real estate agents, we always tell our clients, like, just because you have a little bit of money saved up for your land, don't forget to save up for the cost of starting a small farm and your homestead. Oftentimes people get really intimidated because once they finally get that piece of land, they just want to do everything at once. So I wanted to talk about, how when we first moved here, we started with a small project or two. In fact, I didn't share about it much, but for that first year that we were here, Tim was back in California, just wrapping things up, making sure that the farm we had to move our farm. We had a farm in California that we moved over here. So slowly but surely, I started with a square foot garden. I had 6 beds and slowly expanded from there. And it took us about, a year later to finally get to that 1/4 acre. But during that time, while I started foraging, started putting our elderberry plants, our daylilies, our elderberry. I'm sure you ladies, I've given you a tour. It's way too close to the house, but it's because that was the only plot of land we had at the time. But and then I tarped everything else. And after that first year, we now are able to grow so much more of our vegetables on the land. And with all the abundance we're able to share with our community.
Well, and I think that's important, like, to start small, especially when it comes to animals. Like, I know people get very fear driven and think they got to go out and get everything all at once. But if you can learn, like, really learn one animal at a time and then slowly add, I think it kind of helps prevent that, where you've got so many animals and you're just feeling overwhelmed, that situation. I think it helps with that. But Lacie, what about you?
I totally agree with that statement because it makes a huge difference whenever you can walk outside and look at an animal and know that if they're okay or not.
Yes. Yeah.
And it really is something you have to learn to be able to do, because we talk about, when we go out of town, you don't have a lot of people that can watch your animals because not everybody can walk outside and spot a problem. So being able to know that animal and spot the problems, or, whenever they're doing well, it makes life much easier, because if you have multi-species that you don't know much about, you go out there and everything's dying. And that is it. It's so your heart sinks whenever that happens. And then some people totally get away from their homesteading dreams because of that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point because each animal behaves differently when they're sick. Our sheep behave so much different than our chickens do. And like the first time one of our chickens, I'll be honest, I don't pay as much attention to the chickens as I do our sheep. But like if something's off with the sheep, I can spot it pretty quickly. And a lot of times I'm thinking something's wrong and there just isn't really anything wrong. But the chickens, sometimes I need to be a little more observant with the chickens because I'm not as much, but with the sheep, I think I'm much more observant and maybe a little too hyper observant.
Yeah, I know, especially with sheep. What do they say?
I've heard they're just waiting to die. They're just looking
they're just looking for, yeah, exactly. Just looking for ways to die.
I've heard the same thing about rabbits too. but we don't have rabbits. I've never raised them. So one of these days.
Yeah, we haven't gotten there too.
My grandfather had them whenever I was growing up. So I was raised around them, but I have personally never had any on our homestead.
Okay. Which I've heard it's a good reason. Rabbits are excellent to grow just for the manure. And also, I know some people that are raising them for dog food too. So that might be something we add in the future. But right at the moment, we're just trying to maintain what we have.
Yep. I feel like we're on the same kind of path. Like we've got the larger animals, the livestock's good. The rabbits are something we want to add, but it's just not been a priority.
And also, I would like to add them so that we could run them on grass. And I believe, from what I understand, I think you're grazing. There's supposedly a woman out there that's got it down, but we need to talk to them. But raising them on grass and not losing a bunch of them, I think it takes a little bit of tweaking. So we haven't added them yet.
I've seen them at Polyface where they have rabbit tractors. So, but they have a bottom to it. So the grass can stick up through the bottom, but your predators are not eating them before your animals can.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's an important, what was the next point that you had, Sophie?
Yeah, the next one was the DIYers, the do-it-yourself. And so I think this is one of the things that we learned rather quickly once we started our homestead was, whenever possible, learn how to fix, mend, repurpose items instead of buying new ones. And there's so many online tutorials on YouTube. There's books on everything from repairing fences to making your own soap. That I think that, one of the things that has been a really cool challenge for our homeschooling at home with the children is, how do we repurpose things? Like if we're thrifting and there's a really nice pair of jeans and someone got rid of it because there's a little piece of thread that's missing off the side, let's flip it around and learn how to mend it, and let's learn how to patch it up. And we are saving so much money, and it's so much better for the environment too.
Yeah. Yeah. That was one thing. I mean, Billy has been in construction, and so he knows how to build things. But one thing that I did with my VA money was go to welding school just to learn, not because I really was thrilled about the idea of going to welding school, but we built the sheep tractor. You're able to repair things that need to be repaired around the farm, get them back to a usable condition, especially with tools. I'm not sure what the tools lately seem to be, just in the last couple of years, I think since COVID, tools have been really, the quality has gone downhill. So if you can fix the ones you have, even William has rehandled some of the tools that we've had. And also going to either farm auctions or estate sales and buying old tools, because they seem to be so much higher quality than the new stuff. We had a pitchfork one time. I think we had just bought it, and we might have used it one time, and it broke the first time we used it. So I think buying those tools that were made many years ago, they're just much higher quality than anything you can get from any of the stores today.
I totally agree with that. You're not going to find, excuse me, tools like they used to make them. It's so much, they're going to break so much faster. And that's awesome. I didn't know that you knew how to weld. Like I want to know how to weld. That's one thing I'd like to learn.
I would like to do a welding. There's a few people that want to learn, and I would like to get set up eventually to teach like a women's welding class, because just basic, like I've never worked as a welder, obviously, but I'm talking about just like farm welding, or like even if you wanted to do like build a sheep tractor, we could, build a sheep tractor, or just repair of things. So that's on my goal. That's on my list of things, is to get set up to be able to teach some basic welding.
I think if I remember.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was like, I'm there for that class. I want to come do that.
All right.
I think we could make it happen. Janet was saying that at our camping spot, she has a little blacksmith place to teach how to weld.
Really? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. I think, and the welder that I have is not, it's not going to be the best welder to learn on, because it's kind of touchy. It's kind of sticky, but you have to have your setting just right. So if maybe we could rent like a good one, and I think you have to have a 240 though. I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Billy, but anyway, yeah, that would be cool if we could do that eventually.
Yeah.
So
yeah, where were we? Lacie, we were at HOA last October, and there was that little, it wasn't a thrift shop, but it was like a flea market that we had set up. And I picked up my favorite corn hand sickles. I still have 2 of them. That's like my third hand in the garden. I just love going out there and whacking all the weeds. It's kind of therapeutic, but it's lasted so well. I mean, I can't imagine buying something now and having it endure all of the abuse that I've used in my gardening.
Yeah, estate sales too. I used to go to garage sales to buy a lot of like glass and pottery ware. I've got like bowls even that I still use to this day, just older pieces of glass and pottery.
And that's a great tip for everybody out there on how to get quality tools for a lot of times cheaper prices. So flea markets are a great idea, garage sales, yard sales, all of those things you're going to get a higher quality, older tool, and maybe you have to replace a handle. But I mean, what's a handle? That's it, so much better.
Yep.
Yeah. The other thing is also sharing and trading too. Just reconnecting with the traditional practices of bartering with your neighbors or your local community. Although I was told we can't use the term bartering anymore because the government considers that to be taxable income. So we share a lot and we trade with our community, with our skills or with carpentry, baking, or any goods and services that anybody needs.
We've when we were first putting in our fruit trees, we've got a bunch of fruit trees along our driveway, and then we've got our food forest down at the bottom of the driveway. And when we first put them in, we were mulching like the whole area. And I think we've pretty much mulched that whole area in exchange for honey. So we would take honey with us to the mulch yard, and he would just let us have like truckloads of mulch for a certain amount of honey. Now that guy's not there anymore, but I mean, we got quite a few loads of mulch for honey. So it worked out pretty good for us.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things because we've tried the chip drop and we can never get it's been like 2 years and we still haven't gotten any of the chip drop services, but I've been known to flag a lot of the tree cutters down and get them to come. And yeah, we always gift them with things because they can go anywhere else, but
Yeah,
we
I've
want them to
heard
come here.
I've heard they're kind of tricky to I see the trucks around, but yeah, I've heard. And also there's an area, some of our towns. Now I know our college has a mulch where it's people can just drop off their wood, like their tree branches and whatever, and then they will run them through the mulcher, and you can go get that in your truck. It's just a community service. And there's also a place in another town where I think the trucks it's a city like space where the tree trucks can just dump, and then residents of that town can go pick up the mulch. So
Our county does a compost at the landfill. So they compost a lot of the wood chips and everything. So you can go there and pay. It's not that much. It's like $15 or $20 to fill up the back of your truck, and you can do that. And then we also have the city. They come around and clean around all the power lines. And if you just tell them, if you see them on the side of the road and be like, "Hey, I live down here. Can you drop they're always looking for a place to do that. So those are all good ways to find you some wood chips super cheap.
okay, Homesteading Twin said chip drop was a bust for me too. He ended up buying a semi-load. Wow, that is a lot from a local sawmill. And Homesteading Twins are going to be at the festival, and can't wait to see them. They've got some stories, let me tell you. All
That's
right.
exciting.
Okay, so yes, any other bartering or trade?
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much we don't barter anymore, but we share and we trade a lot with our community so much that like we rarely have to go to the grocery store, if that. I mean, other than buying bulk from Azure, we have a really cool service here called Naturally a Deal. And so that is a bulk discount place that has a monthly or bi-weekly drop or so. And what's nice is, sometimes you can find some really nice organic fruit on there, 50 pounds of organic beets and sugar. But other than that, like our community here, we know the people. It could be from us sharing our real milk and our dairy products as well. So we know the people who value the same things that we do. And because of that, we always ask before we take any cash is just, what do you have on your farm? And what are some things that we can share? And so while I was traveling last week, we have a local woman here in town that mills her own organic wheat berries, and she makes her own long fermented sourdough. So even though I wasn't home to make sourdough, Tim was still able to get some in exchange for some of the Vietnamese yogurt that we make. Then that's the only yogurt that her husband can eat because he's got SIBO. And so he can't have any pasteurized dairy at the market, but he can have our yogurt. And so it's just it's a blessing for us to be able to live this way. It's not something that we grew up with, but our community is really, you know, critical for us being able to live this way. But it also means, you have to put yourself out there. You have to see what other people's contributions are and what you can do to help one another out. And it's just a beautiful way to live. But yeah, we rarely, if any, have to go to the grocery store because where we are, we're in a food desert. Everything, I mean, we've got our Walmart and our local food city, which rarely has any of the quality ingredients that we're looking for.
Yeah, that's the way we were in Texas too, is if we didn't grow it or raise it ourselves, it we would have to go, like, the closest place to get decent any kind of organic anything was Dallas, which was like 2.5, 3 hours away. And yeah, going to Dallas that's too big of a city for me. But yeah, and that brought up another point. That was we were living in Texas, and we watched, I can't remember what it was. We watched one of the food documentaries and saw the sourdough making process of just starting with like flour and water. And that started me on the sourdough journey of making my own, like first making your own starter and then learning how to do the long fermentation process. And it took me a few tries, but I finally found this woman on YouTube that showed me start to finish how to do it. So, I mean, there is just so much information. Knitting is also something else I've learned on YouTube. So there's so much you can learn if you focus, or if you can just avoid some of the other stuff on YouTube. There's just so many things that you can learn from a free resource.
Yeah, and one of the things too, to that point, to your point, Michelle, is learning how to stretch the dollar in the kitchen. I talked about it briefly, but using a whole broiler chicken, because even we don't make enough to sell, but if we do, with the other year, I think we were charging $7 a pound for a whole broiler chicken. Now that's because we use our milk, we clabber the milk, we feed our chickens organic feed. We really don't farm to be a profitable farm. We farm because we want the highest and best ingredients for our own household. But that being said, when you piece out or you buy pieced chicken out, or parted chicken, it's about $15 a pound. And so when you're buying your whole broiler chicken from a small farm, it's just better to buy economically, it's better to buy the whole broiler chicken, learn how to cook with the neck, the chicken feet, the chicken livers, right? And the chicken heart. Use everything, learn how to make bone broth and stretch it. I mean, I grew up eating this way where out of necessity. My parents and our family was pretty poor, so we had to make 4 meals out of a whole broiler chicken to feed all 4 of us back when I was little, and we still eat this way. And now we do it because it's the most economical way, it's the most nutrient dense way, it's how we focus on making nourishing meals for our family. And because we are now raising our animals, we do it because we want to honor the entire animal, whether it's a chicken to our cows, to our sheep, to our turkey. So it's just, learn those things, learn those skills. You can go on YouTube, you can follow somebody that you really respect and how they live and how they eat and how they farm. And yeah, and learn how to cook from scratch, even if it's just a simple meal, like even if it's just, your peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Learn how to make peanut butter from scratch, learn how to make jam from scratch, learn how to make bread. Doesn't have to be sourdough, even if it's just a simple white bread. Learn how to make it from scratch, and then you can go from there. But yeah, we should that's the way forward, is us really, staying away from processed food, staying away from the grocery stores, and learning how to make it from scratch.
Yeah, and I'll just say I started out, I didn't just start making sourdough. When we were growing up, we made pretty much everything from scratch. And so if we wanted something, we had to make it. And bread, I can't even tell you how many loaves of bread I made growing up. Because we didn't buy it from the grocery store.
I grew up with my grandmother making sourdough bread, and I didn't do that. But as I got older, biscuits or anything like that, I would always make. But like when we lived in town, I started making our own hamburger buns, hot dog buns, pizza dough. There's this really great bread. It's not sourdough, but it was in like the New York Times, where it's like a no knead bread. It was really easy. I would start it at night, put it on top of the fridge in the morning, turn it out, let it rise, and then put it in your oven. And it's super easy. And that's what we ate for a long time because, for one thing, it's super cheap to make. When you go to the store now, you're paying like $5, $6. If you go to a really nice Irish bakery, you're going to pay a lot more than that per loaf. And really, you're like a couple, like $1 or so now that you can use organic flour and yeast and make your own bread. So that's where I came from, not having enough money to go buy it. So I had to figure out how to make it. And I think a lot of us, like, that has happened too.
Yeah, I agree. We had to make it because we certainly were gonna go buy it. But yeah, and brings me to another thing in the as far as making your own stuff. You can make your own medicine, and you can grow things, but you can also learn what is growing in your own backyard. I just tinctured some mullein just maybe a couple of weeks ago, and mullein is not something I've had to plant. It grows all over and it's great. I have a friend who texted me and she said she used, I think it was dried mullein in a tea, and she said it is excellent for cough. And I meant to tincture some mullein last fall, but I just never had the time to do it. But I finally made the time, went out, gathered a bunch of leaves and got them tinctured. But I mean, that's just another thing. Like, we live in the mountains and there are so many things that grow in these mountains that if you just stop and learn what they are. Golden seal. We had to take golden seal because my mom growing up, we didn't go to the doctor very much. So we went to this chiropractor who would give us either herbs or homeopathic medicine. And golden seal was one of those things that we got. And it grows, like, if you can identify it, it grows around here. Ginseng, there's so many things that grow that you can use for medicine that you don't have to buy.
Totally agree. And one thing that is almost, you're going to find it almost always, is plantain, and not the starchy fruit, but the weed. And it's good for so many things. Like, my kids have known probably since they were 3. I think I found Micah one time. He had been bit by an ant or something, and he's outside pounding it with a rock and rubbing it on there because he knew that it would take the sting away. And so, like, that's just easy things that to identify that you can use, I mean, right outside of your door.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is really, really exciting. Where we are, we're just really spoiled. I think we're in, the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, where in California we didn't have access to all of the golden seal, the goldenrod, the self-heal. We had plantain and stinging nettle. So that was something that I do miss, not the plantain. I have lots of plantain, but the stinging nettle I don't have growing wild here. And I've tried transplanting some, but haven't had that much luck. But otherwise, I mean, everything just grows so nice and wild. And I haven't yet stumbled upon any ginseng yet, but that'll be something. That'll be the day.
Yeah, I haven't either. And I don't know how much of it has already been harvested. I know you can I would like to do some wild crafted. I know it's not the same, but I might just have to go that route because I think the chances of finding it growing naturally are probably pretty slim.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah. And so on that point, one of the things about being the smart homesteader is growing and preserving our own food. let's talk about seed saving. I love this. Like, I mean, the mustard greens that I have, they're now going to seed. The cilantro that I started early off with this year, I've all gone to seed. And I'm a lazy gardener. I'm just going to let it go and have free volunteers because these are the volunteers that came from last season.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, what are your thoughts on seed saving?
Yes, I love the seed saving. I love the easy ones, the cucumbers and the squashes and the tomatoes and the peppers. The issue that I have is the ones, sometimes I get varieties too close because I want to plant all the varieties, and instead of giving them the space they need so that they're true, sometimes I plant them just a little too close, and then I get a combination of things. But yeah.
And it's fun to gather the seeds at the end of the year. If you don't have different varieties planted, like we had, was it Swiss chard? Man, it produces a lot of seeds, and we just go out there with a brown paper bag and break it off and throw it in there and shake it up, and that's about it. Or radishes are another thing that I don't know if you know this, but you can actually eat the seed pods too. Whenever they're tender, you can saute them and all. But they're really easy to harvest those seeds and all too. So we try to do seed saving, but like you, Michelle, I like to plant different varieties, and then then they cross and it's not a true one. So
yeah, I have trouble with that. I think I crossed, what was it, Tromboncinos with, I think I planted them too close to my Tahitian melons, and yeah, I was like, this is not, I gotta like start from the beginning again because they're too, now I can't tell the difference between them.
Well, what about like some food preservation techniques too? That's something really important to learn, like canning, drying, fermenting to extend the shelf life of your harvest. And again, learning all of this reduces our reliance on grocery stores and, having an idea of like what we're using every year, and adjusting what we're growing that next year based off of like how many tomato sauces or how many cucumbers and pickles that we ate this last year just helps us. I mean, I'm getting better and better at it in terms of like predicting, okay, we actually went through quite a bit of bread and butter pickles. Didn't realize that was something we really liked. But yeah, I mean, fermentation is my number one go-to. I've grew up with it, but I also love it as a way to preserve our food naturally and increase the probiotics. So kimchi is one of my favorite things to make, and sauerkraut.
Yeah, you'll have to teach me your kimchi recipe. I've tasted several different kinds, but I want to taste yours. There was one that I really liked. I just can't remember where I got it from. And then I bought one from one of the health food stores, and it had ginger in it, which it had quite a bit of ginger in it, and it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't my favorite. So I'm like, I won't do that again. But I like canning. I like the pressure canning, I think, better than the water bath. The water bath just seems so, I don't know what it is, just takes a lot of time. But we've been doing a lot of freeze drying also. Like last year we had a ton of strawberries, and rather than make a bunch of strawberry jam, which I don't really eat, I mean, every once in a while I'll put it in my yogurt, but I seem to be the only one that eats it. We, instead of making more jam, we just freeze dried the strawberries, and it's quick. You can just put them on trays and put them in the freeze dryer really quick. And we've been doing that more and more just for time.
My parents are huge into freeze drying. Like they just got one of the extra large ones that can fit a lot in it, and they make for the baby. They make like yogurt bars with the strawberries that they've either powdered or they went and got, but they'll freeze dry those, and he sees those and he wants the whole bag. So that's great. And we need to do more freeze drying. I haven't done a lot with that, but we do have one. I just need to use it more. But fermenting, I hadn't fermented until a couple years ago, and some of my kids, that's the only way they'll eat like green beans is if they're fermented. They don't want them cooked or anything, but they'll eat them fermented. And Sophie, you got Selah hooked on kimchi because she makes it now, and her last batch was really good. She said there was too much ginger in it, so Michelle might not like that one, but it was really good. But she used her her pak choi that she had grown out in the garden, and used pak choi and carrots and all for her kimchi, and it was really good.
So good.
Do you put ginger in your kimchi? Yeah,
I do. Yeah, any chance I get.
It's so good.
I don't mind ginger. This was probably just a bit too much.
Too much.
Was like over. It was mostly what I could taste, and I really like the. I don't know. And maybe this is not. I really like the stronger ferments, and not so much. I don't know how to describe it, but I really like the strong fermenting flavor. Not so much the ginger, but
you like the sourness.
yeah.
Are you a sour person? Yeah,
I am. Yeah, and I'm the only one that likes the sour stuff, so nobody else.
Do you like the spicy, Michelle?
I like a little bit of spice. I can't do like Thai hot stuff, but I can do a little bit of spice.
Okay. I mean, there's a white kimchi that I'm going to make with our Napa cabbage outside right now. We grew it, and man, it's nice and thick. I have one that's bolting, so I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't get to it fast enough. So I'm going to let that one go to seed, but I have one that I'm going to make because the children love the white kimchi, and it is really good. It's, equivalent to the American or European sauerkraut.
Okay.
German, right? Yeah. But I like it. The other thing that we started getting into was just making like fermented water kefir.
Okay.
And this is a great thing to learn how to do too. We're not having to buy any of the Ollie Pops anymore, which is really great. I mean, it's not thrifty in a sense, but it is nice because it's a probiotic. It's actually good for you. So that's something to mention on the fermentation side. That can be fun.
I started doing marigold soda the end of last summer, and you don't need anything except marigold flowers to do it, and it does get fizzy too. So you don't even need like any water kefir or anything like that. So I've been playing around with different flowers, and then like you said, you have your flavors, your different flavors and stuff, and you don't have to go buy it at the store.
That's right. It's just one less thing that we're just becoming less and less dependent on the grocery store and using what we have on our land. But actually, it's actually better for you. We're creating these probiotics, which is better for our gut health.
Yep. I tried to make kombucha one time, and it was also when we were living in Texas, and the temperature where we were living was not consistent. So it was either too hot or too cold. It was very hard to regulate the temperature. And I found it was either too hot or too cold. And I need to try to make it again, but I haven't tried. But maybe I'll have to try that water kefir. That might be a little easier.
Yeah, I'll share some grains with you the next time we get together.
Sounds
because great. It is something that Tim's been taking care of, to be honest. Like, he's been rocking it because the kombucha, it's a little bit more hands-on. You do have to brew your tea, you have to put in the sugar, you have to manage the SCOBY, wait for a while. but just based off of the heat and the temperature in the home, we can get things going. The water kefir is done in 24 hours. And then we do a second fermentation, which is in this bottle to make it fizzy, another 24 hours. And so the grains just keep multiplying. So you can see, I'll share some of this with you guys. But the grains keep multiplying. And if you come to the Homesteaders United, I'll have some of these extra grains to share too. But what's nice is this is, it just keeps multiplying when it's healthy. And this is done in 24 hours. So we're really excited, really, really excited to share, but also it's easy enough that you're also getting the probiotics. But we're just looking for quick hacks, especially when things are so busy with the summer and the garden's crazy and we're thinking about preservation. We still want to be able to have fun and do something that's still easy and great in the kitchen.
Yes. Amy Tracy, where did you live in Texas? We lived east of Dallas, near Texarkana. It was right on the border of Texas and Arkansas. All right. Oh, also, I was going to say, we were talking about medicine earlier and like growing some of your own herbs. And I was also going to add in, don't forget about your animals. We grow comfrey, of course, for it's high in protein. It brings up a lot of minerals from the soil. I also make the comfrey salve with it. But we also have, and this is another thing that you might have growing near you, is black walnut. And you can take the black walnut hull, use it as a tincture, and it will help you with parasites for, let's say, your sheep. You can also, we've got some wormwood out there growing. You can use wormwood that also treats parasites in sheep. Garlic, a whole bunch of stuff that will help the health of your animals. What about you, Sophie?
Yeah, I mean, I've got yarrow, I've got a medicinal garden going. I've got to take the extra step to tincture everything, but I've got the yarrow, the chamomile, I've got marshmallow that I got as a gift, and just trying to figure out, like, it just looks so pretty. That's my problem. I've got wormwood back there, mugwort. So it's all growing. I just have to now take the next step and learn how to tincture everything. Yeah.
And I think that's the hard part, is actually finding the time to process it in a way that can be used which is why for comfrey, it's like, I just went out there and fed the sheep a bunch of comfrey. I can just go pick it and throw it out to them. And also, there was a comment, or there was a question that I wanted to address on, I think it was your post, Lacie, on how to reduce your costs for feed. And one of the feed for your animals, and one of the ways we do that is comfrey is one thing you can grow, and you just buy it one time and you can propagate it. Kale, a lot of kales, you can get some perennial kales to grow and feed to your animals. And tromboncinos, we got our tromboncino seeds originally from oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank. I can't remember. It'll come.
Rare seeds.
That? Well, no, it was oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank as to where we got them. But the tromboncino seeds, like they say, if you've got a fence to grow, just plant tromboncino seeds and just grow them all over your fence, because they're very disease resistant. You can feed them to your livestock. Now, if you have ruminants, you might have to process them a little more in order to feed it to them. But if anybody raises pigs, you can just feed it to your pigs, and they will last through the winter. I mean, we just had one from last fall that lasted through the winter time.
Another really good one is the mango beets.
Oh,
so we just started growing those, and those can get up to like 20 pounds. What's good is we can feed those out to the chickens and the cows, the cattle. It'll help during the winter time because hay is getting so expensive. Non-sprayed hay is getting pretty expensive.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I had something and I lost it totally. I was gonna say, so one way that you can feed your animals in the fall is one of our friends has a relationship with like the people that sell all the pumpkins in the fall. And right after, Halloween, they throw all these pumpkins away. So he has developed a relationship. So he just goes and fills up truckloads of pumpkins that they're going to throw away anyway. And he brings it back and feeds it to his livestock. So if you know of anybody or any place that does that, they may just want to throw stuff out, and you'll actually be helping them by taking it off. So that's one way to reduce cost in the fall.
And pumpkin seeds are supposed to help with parasites also.
Yeah, they're great for deworming.
Yeah. And there's another reason to come to our festival is because we have a ton of apple orchards around here, and apples will be producing that time of year. But we've gone to some of these apple orchards, and a lot of the apples that have fallen on the ground, Billy's talked to them, and they'll let you just pick them up. And we fed them to our pigs that we had at the time. We have some donkeys next door that I feed in the wintertime too, because nobody lives over there. So I try to take care of them, and we fed them to them. So they won't let you just go over there and pick them for human consumption. But if you tell them you're going to feed them to your animals, they have less of a problem with it.
Yeah. Another thing that we do, we're swimming in milk right now. So one of the things that we do is we also stretch out our chicken feed and make a clabber with the milk and stretch out and ferment. It's also better for their gut health, but we ferment the feed in a couple of days and feed it to the meat chickens. Our meat chickens are nice and fat and fluffy, but our egg laying hens are, they've got great gut health. But if you don't have access to the milk, you can always ferment with water too, and that's still great for saving money on your feed. So it's just getting more and more expensive.
Yeah, we've done that in the past, fermented, just with water, and it does stretch your feed bill a little bit.
Yeah. One of the things that we're going to be learning from you and Billy, Michelle, is composting. That's another thing to learn how to do.
Yes, and that's another thing you can with your food waste, we can learn to, if you don't feed it to your chickens, or you can compost it, which is an excellent way to save money on inputs, because you are not going to be able to buy compost any better than what you're going to be able to produce on your own farm. It's going to have all of the microbes and animal life specific to your location in your soil. And it's a lot of the materials that you need to make the compost, you can go collect for free. Like grass clippings that could be your green. Nitrogen can be any poop that you have from animals. So whatever animal manure you've got, you can use that as your nitrogen source. And then your carbon, you can collect like leaves from the woods, wood chips, and you can even try to get some of that decomposed fungal life that is in the woods. Get that into your compost to start to get the fungal going. So yeah, and then put that on your bed. You can make compost teas, compost extract. So that is going to be exciting to be able to teach, because it'll save you. You're going to have the best soil, all with materials that you collect from around your area.
Yeah, and not just with our veggie scraps, but with our animal byproducts too. So after harvesting, we're going to be harvesting at the event, but any of that blood to turn into blood meal, feather turning into feather meal, bone turning into bone meal. But I know we're also going to be learning how to compost all of that together.
Yes, and that's now do you do that? Do you turn your the blood into blood meal? Is that what you guys do for your
We dilute it
Okay.
and then we pour it into the soil.
Okay. So yeah, there's more than one way to do it, and it's just whatever fits your situation, whatever you have time to do.
Mike does that. He takes all the blood and adds it to the garden, and I'm just stand far away from there as he does it, because I'm like, no, thank you. It smells awful. I can't handle it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we've put some things in the compost pile, and that sometimes that first turn after you've got body parts in there is is pretty strong. But
And then the other thing is the zero waste kitchen too. So not just eating nose to tail, but anything that we're done using in the kitchen, we can return back into the soil. So one of the things that I do is after I'm rinsing out my milk jars, instead of dumping it down the sink, what I'll do is I'll just go outside and grab a couple of these jars that I have and just put them straight out into the soil, which feeds the microbes, and the plants are so happy. It's just natural fertilizer for them.
I saw somebody mention about the coffee grounds at local coffee shops, and that sounds good in theory, but coffee is actually the most heavily sprayed crop out there with pesticides. So if it's not organic coffee, I necessarily wouldn't put that on my garden. That wouldn't be my first choice. I'll put it that way. But one thing that we have done before is go to these smoothie juicing places, and they have tons of pulp left over. And if you can set it up with them to take their pulp away and put that in your compost or put it in your garden, that is a really good resource, and you're doing them a favor, and it's free most of the time.
that's a great point, and that goes back to some of the ways to feed your animals, is try to get some of these, like, for example, Billy works with a bakery, and he's developed a relationship with them. It didn't start out that he was taking some of their food scraps, but he developed a relationship with them and figured out how he could be a blessing to them. He's done some electric work for them, and a lot of their baked stuff that they can't sell, he gets and just goes and picks it up once a week and feeds it to the chickens. So that's an excellent point. If you can figure out how to maybe reduce the amount of food that they put in their dumpster so they don't have to have 2 dumps per week instead of 1. That's an excellent point.
And one other thing that we've done is actually, my mom works at the food bank. Sometimes she volunteers. Well, they have stuff left over a lot of times, and they need somebody to come pick it up. So for a while, we would go, and it's a lot of vegetables and things. Sometimes it's in packaging and everything, but that's another good option. You can feed to your animals and or put it in your compost.
Because that's like the end point, right? Do they have to put it in the dumpster after that? It's not like they can do anything else with it, right?
Yeah, because it's like all out of date. And normally by that time, we would go through stuff and pick out some stuff. If it looked good, I'm not above doing that. But most of the time it was like mushy and everything. But the chickens, they'll love an old watermelon thrown in there, or melons or different fruits. So there's lots of ways that you can, reduce food cost.
Yeah, we do have a question, and I'm going to put this up here. What plants could lower an immune system and what could be used as a steroid? I'm not sure I know the answer to that, but Lacie or Sophie, if you have anything you want to contribute, go ahead and.
Well, I think if anything that may lower your immune system, it could be something that you're allergic to. There's plenty of stuff out there that you're going to have a reaction, and that's putting a stress on your immune system. But as far as steroids, I don't know. I mean, stinging nettle is one of the plants, or it is the highest amount of chlorophyll in a plant that you can get. So if you want something that's going to boost your immune system, I think of stinging nettle, elderberry, echinacea, those things. I mean, even comfrey. Some people don't say to ingest comfrey. Gonna throw that out there. But there have been other people that have used it for years and never had any problems internally. So you have to decide for yourself on that. But those are the ones that just come to my mind right away.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what could be used as a steroid. One thing about lowering the immune system, I would say maybe try to calm the body down. Put your body in like a more relaxed state. So maybe some deep like maybe some deep breathing, just like maybe just calming yourself down so that it's not reacting to every little thing, if I'm understanding that right. That would be my recommendation. Rainwater harvesting. I have that as one of our topics. And after that, I don't have any other, unless we have any questions, which I've been trying to keep track. And I don't see any questions. So if we want to just talk about rainwater harvesting.
We used to do it when we lived in the city. I mean, that's how we watered all of our plants around our yard. Right now, we don't really have a way for catchment at the moment, but we do have a pond, so I guess that you could consider that rainwater catchment. But when we lived in town, that's what we had. We had, the 50-gallon barrels hooked up to our gutter system with a spout on it, and we watered all of our stuff, all of our gardens, just from rainwater. And actually, it's better for your plants too.
Yeah.
You get all the nitrogen from the lightning actually puts nitrogen into the water during thunderstorms. And so that's why everything greens up after a thunderstorm. But I always think that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
That is pretty neat. Yeah, we do just some light rainwater in catchment, but we did more of it when we were in the city. We get so much water here already, and that's kind of one of the reasons why we targeted the area. And so we don't really have to water the garden much, but that would be the water that we use to water the garden when we were in the city.
A couple of things I would just say. I know ponds, if you have ponds or if you can put ponds in, you can also use them to stock a protein source. So that would be another way to get a protein source with you don't have to raise the animals, just stock your pond with fish that you would eat. And swales, you can also, now you have to be careful with swales, especially around here, just because you don't want to go above a certain, if your slope is too steep, you don't want to put in swales. But if you have flatter land, you can put swales in to preserve that water.
Yeah, and for the event, we actually have a guest speaker coming, Eric, who's going to be teaching us all about rain catchment systems. And I think he's from Carolina Homestead and Survival Planning. So we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that one.
I'm excited about the whole event overall. I think it's going to be fantastic. And I'm really looking forward to the food. I'm such a food person. I know y'all are too, but I'm excited because we get to sit around and hang out and talk, and like that's what all this is about.
Yes, I'm excited for the s'mores at the campfire. That's what.
That's right. All the clean s'mores, marshmallows.
That's what Tim's talking about. So now I'm ready.
And well, I see Danny was asking like what other topics are going to be covered at the event, and we're going to have a talk similar to this, a little more organized and giving you step-by-step kind of instructions on how you can, you know, save on the homestead and do stuff yourself and be, you know, smarter with your money on the homestead. But also there's beekeeping classes for the kids. There's knife sharpening. You can learn how to sharpen your own knives. There's a butchering class where we're doing sheep and chickens and ducks. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know how to do any of that, then, you know, that is big things that we're covering. And am I missing it? I think I'm missing a few things. What else are we having?
We've got some soap making basics. Did you say honeybees already? Beekeeping, we've got beekeeping 101 and 201.
We're also doing a foraging class. So I'm excited for that one too.
I'm really excited for that one. She is one of my good friends, Alicia Warnikov, and she studied with the Cherokees grandmothers. So she knows a lot of the really hard to find and the medicine in the area here. There's thermophilic composting that we're going to be learning about as well, and preparing a family apothecary. There's going to be on Saturday is going to be a special event on Saturday with Mike.
Yeah, he's going to have a little talk. I don't know exactly what Ollie's talking about, but we're going to have a talk and we're going to have worship music. Your girls are going to sing for us so we can all have a good time and, you know, fellowship with one another because, you know, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I'm really excited. The food as well is going to be great. We do have Chef Blair, who is a renowned chef, and he's bringing a whole team to be making dinner for us every meal, which is going to be great because, you know, it's not even farm to table. It's going to be right there, farm to farm. We're going to be eating right there and fellowshipping with one another. But yeah, this is going to be great.
All right. Well, we've been we've reached over an hour actually. So we've got, I think I pinned the website up at the top, but yep, then Sophie just nope, I'm did the wrong one. Sorry about that. Homesteaders United is where you can go and get your tickets. We look forward to seeing everybody out there. Sophie, Lacie, do you guys have any other things you want to say before we wrap up?
I just want to say I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to meeting everybody that's going to come join us. And we want you to come join us. We want to hang out and have a good time and build the community and fellowship. So make sure you get your tickets now.
That's right. I'm really excited to meet everybody, really excited to learn from everyone here and all of the guests, but also learn from our attendees too. That's one of the reasons why, you know, as we're all speakers at events, one of the things is like we want to learn. There's so much to learn from other people. And at other conferences, we don't always have that opportunity that we would have here at an event like this where we can all come together in a casual setting and get to know one another. So I'm really excited for that. Get your tickets because we've already sold out of the early bird tickets. The tent sites are we're down to like half. Right. And then if you're looking to stay at a local hotel. We've got lodging with discount codes, but I think those are limited as well, just because it is over Labor Day weekend. And so if you don't have any Labor Day plans, it'd be great to plan to come out and hang out with all of us in a rare event like this where we can all come together and learn.
Yep. Tim has worked out a deal at the Holiday Inn and also at Wingate by Wyndham. He's got 20 rooms at the Holiday Inn and he's got 12 rooms at Wingate. So all the details are at the website. Thank you all for coming and hanging out with us tonight. It's been a joy. And until next time, we will see you later.